All right, we're live. Crown Council Live.
Hey.
Welcome, everybody. Hey.
Good day.
Good day. Hey, this is our opportunity to connect with our community. Whether you're a team member or a doctor, our Crown Council Live is your chance to kind of connect with us, to be together, and to meet some of the stories that are taking place all across Crown Council universe. So grateful to be with you. We're going to have some fun guests, different. Steve, we had some hot topics this morning that you wanted to discuss today. So looking forward to that.
Yes, very, very timely, as a matter of
Timely
fact.
topics. Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, so tomorrow, well, today, we got to talk about today. It's February 29th. I have an interesting fact for everyone.
Leap day. It's leap day.
More people in America are born on February 29th than on December 25th.
And that is relevant because Stuart was born
Thank you.
on December 20th. But how could that actually be? Because
I don't
February
know.
25th only comes up every 4 years. So
Hey,
how
Climate.
could that possibly be true?
I'm sure people want their children born on this day. I don't know. No one wants a child born on Christmas.
And the source of your data is
very important. I'll reference that in the notes when we put this live.
All right. It's all those obstetricians that do not want to work on Christmas Day.
So big day today because tomorrow marks the official beginning of the Smiles for Life whitening campaign. We are very excited. Everybody's ready. We're going to kick off. Donations have already started to come in secretly. We're seeing those come through, but very excited for our next $50 million for Smiles for Life whitening. Any updates, Greg, for Smiles for Life whitening before we kick off tomorrow?
Hey, a big national press release went out day before yesterday. There is a lot of press in a lot of places on the website on crowncouncil.com under the whitening product. There is a local press release. And if you haven't done that yet, great opportunity to go in there, download that. It's a fill in the blank, get it to your local media, and let the community where you live know that you are the Smiles for Life office of choice.
Hey, quick footnote on that is that in many communities around the country, the local newspaper continues to be alive and well because people want to know what's going on next door. So if you have a newspaper in your community, it's not in every community, but in a lot of places, it still is the go-to place for what's going on in town. So make sure you get your press release, your local press release to your local media.
Very good. And I'll drive you, Greg, to the airport Saturday morning at 8:30. Where are you off to?
We are off to, we're flying into Santiago in the Dominican Republic. Got a great group of 37 that are flying in with us. And we will be there all next week in Puerto Plata. We've got 6 doctors plus our Dominican friends that are there. And I should mention that the trip that we have planned for the fall of this year is now full, and we are opening up another date. So we are going to do our best to run 2 full trips in the fall. We've opened up March of 2025 and fall of 2025 as we have people already reserving places for those trips. So if you're interested, give me a yell, give Aaron a yell. But we'd love to have you. It is life-changing to go and just serve people, and that's what you do.
Very good.
Great work.
All right. Well, we can't wait to see the updates. We'll do them daily on both Facebook and Instagram from our humanitarian team if you want to follow along with their trip. Greg will be doing his best to send me pictures from the Dominican, although I can't promise that is always a successful transfer of data. Sometimes it doesn't work out. So.
Word dial-up comes to mind.
Yeah, we'll post old pictures if we can't get new ones. So. Very good. Hey, we have got a really fun guest that we've been planning on for weeks to join us, eAssist. DJ, our producer, has got him in the waiting room, so we'll have him bring in the team from eAssist. And as eAssist is coming in, I'll have Steve introduce them and our relationship with them, if that's okay, Steve. Is that all right?
Absolutely. Happy to do it.
Let's do it.
You got it. All right. So as they're coming on, there we go. Very, very excited to have the eAssist team with us today. Penny Reed, who is the voice. Penny, was it okay to say that you're the voice of eAssist? Is that overreaching?
It could be slightly overreaching. I probably have the loudest voice.
There you go.
At eAssist.
Okay.
That I think would be an accurate statement.
So, welcome to Penny Reed. Penny and I have known each other for many, many years, and as well as the now industry. I'm gonna if I over introduce you guys, you have to stop me. But Dr. Jim DiMarino, who is now dentistry's #1 expert in insurance. Is that overreaching?
A little bit, yes. But
Oh,
I'm
I think
excited
it's
to be here. And I mean, if Penny's the voice of eAssist, then I'm somewhere in between there. What you
There
said,
you go.
yes.
So I, longtime good friend of the late Dr. Charles Blair, and Jim, I know that you worked with Jim for many, many years, and that you worked with Charles for many, many years. He was a great mentor of yours as ours. And so we are excited to have you here, as well as Scott. Now I'm going to make sure I don't butcher your last name. Hiranaka, did I get that right?
Great job. Great
Is
job.
that
Yeah.
fantastic? So between the three here, we have some of dentistry's top experts in all things insurance. So whether you're in network or out of network, no matter what, everybody has to deal with insurance. And so this is the topic that most everyone in dentistry loves to hate. So we're looking forward to some great advice here and some good guidance. So before we get started, can we talk about healthcare hacking for starters? Maybe you can give us, since this is the timely topic, everybody's kind of on edge about what's transpired in the last few days with this whole Change Healthcare hacking, and is it going to impact reimbursement and getting checks? So I'll kind of leave that open to the three of you to give us kind of an update, what we know now and what we're still trying to find out and what we can expect.
Well, I'll go first, and then I'm really hoping, but I'll go first because I'm the loudest, and then I'm really hoping that gives Jim, who's the expert, more, and who's also worked on the payer side, more time to formulate his answer. So what we're doing, it's the expect the best and and prepare for the worst. So we're still day by day looking and watching, and we do file a lot of claims on behalf of offices, and at the same time we don't have a clearinghouse. So Henry Schein One does. I would and I believe they recently issued a statement. I would look more towards what the clearinghouses are actually saying. We're remaining optimistic, but also very, very agile. Dr. Jim, what are you seeing and hearing, both on the practice booster side as well as your dear friends that, because Dr. Jim used to be a dental director, so that is one thing that one edge that he has that I don't think anyone else in that role has ever had. So, Dr. Jim, what are you seeing and hearing?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having us, Steve. I appreciate your kind words of Dr. Blair. What a legacy! What a mentor to so many. Just privileged to be able to have worked with him and now to carry on his legacy. So, really excited to be here. I see you said it so well. Insurance is kind of the thing we love to hate. Well, I was the guy that you would call and complain to. So I was on the payer side. I was the dental director. I was the one that for 6 years I would answer those questions. Are you a licensed dentist? How can you dictate treatment? Where are you even located? Are you licensed in my state? All those questions. So I had that big target on my shirt and my phone for sure for many years. And what we're seeing is with these breaches, a concern on all people, all sides, right? Not just the payer, not just the clearinghouses, but patients are now calling and asking, am I at risk of losing my data? My data is my personal information at risk of being compromised. We've seen it in a couple of places that hits home for dentistry very, it's near and dear to what we're dealing with every day. with major corporations in the dental industry having these same concerns. So we're seeing a lot of insecurity and doubt, but we're also seeing a reaffirmation of what we need to do to make sure that everything is protected, right? So just as us as providers, we're going to treat our patients with universal precautions. We're going to treat them regardless of, not even looking at their insurance. Like we're just going to, offer treatment plans based on what they need. We're seeing that doubling down on the industry. And this last one was unfortunate because, we thought we had a little bit more of a warning and a little bit more of a time to kind of react. But, we're dealing with some very crafty individuals. And I think it just helps us to understand that we're in this together. And it's not just the provider that we have to, as a provider, we need to be concerned about PHI, PII, and how that's transmitted through what we're dealing with. So make sure you're partnering with the right vendors, right clearinghouses to ensure that you're doing the best you can for your patients, because at this point, that's all we can do.
Jim, are you, just as a follow-up question to your answer, and if we don't know the answer right now, by all means, we could definitely follow back up. Is one of the best remedies now for practices over these next few days to file paper claims, or what are you?
Yeah, I wouldn't shy away. I think I would call my carrier. I'd find my clearinghouse, call them. That's what I did, just to say, look, I heard this was out there. What do I need to do? Do I need to submit paper claims? Is that the best thing to go forward? We all know that there's a lot of that's not even secure, right? I mean, anything can happen with paper claims. In fact, we've seen that happen in the past as well. So in a way, I would just reach out to my clearinghouse that based on your software or how you're set up in your office, and just ask them. And they're the ones that have the best information right now. Unfortunately, there's so many of them, and it's hard to really give a global statement, but best thing is to check in with them and follow their direction and lead.
And some of them may actually advise that you go straight to the portal to file.
Correct.
So I think
That
it's just going to be specific to, the individuals rather than making a global statement. See, I told you I was the loudest.
I think, but you had the time to think about it. That's a great way to answer it too. I know it's a little slower, but it is an option and something you definitely want to connect with your carriers about in your.
So I'm assuming then, again, if I'm overstating, correct me, eAssist probably files more claims than maybe anybody in the country, or at least more than most. So I assume that's what you're doing, is you're talking directly to your clearinghouse, who you go through, you're taking it on a case-by-case basis.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Yes.
Well, Steve, maybe I can share a little insight. I think what this shines a light on is how many hands are in the cash flow stream for the dental offices.
I thought you were going to say how many hands are in the till, but you got
same concept. This really does shine a light on how sophisticated and complicated. I don't think for good reasons, but these incidents really shine a light on how complex this has got. That the revenue cycle has gotten ridiculously complicated for particularly the solo practitioner. The larger DSOs that have full staff to be working on these problems, they've got some resources to turn to. But, for the average practitioner, dealing with all of this is just a mess and a headache, and they don't have time. They don't have the resources. And it really is unfortunate. It's kind of a sad state that dentistry's found itself in, that we've got so many third parties involved in what is, a very simplistic transaction between a patient and their provider, their dental provider. But it just is where we're at right now. And so I think it does, emphasize the importance, like you were sharing, to have a really good team behind you, depending on how you want to do that. Is that part of being part of Crown Council? Is that being part of making sure you have a resource or vendor like eAssist, like Practice Booster? It can leave a lot of dentists with, like, where do I turn? Like, for answers when they're trying to still produce every day. I mean, they've got a busy schedule. Do they have hours to be spending trying to solve these problems and get these workarounds? It's tough.
All just to get paid for what I do. It's like, can someone just write me a check? Does anybody write checks anymore, by the way? Insurance companies do, but
Very good. Hey, that's a good transition. I was going to share my screen here into your look at this. Give yourself a raise. I found the three of you here. Is that what we're going to be talking about today? Is the beauty of giving yourself a I want to know how this tour is going. The tour.
Well, okay.
I love this name, Penny.
Well, I can't take credit. It was a collaborative effort on the name. But it really makes a whole lot of sense. And as far as how the tour is going, it has included a couple of stops at Buc-ee's.
Oh,
Has it
nice.
really?
Hey.
Yeah, like when we had cities that were close together, we
Buc-ee's.
end a
in
program
Texas,
in Texas.
you might be
and
able to
Georgia.
find one in Tennessee and Louisiana. But
Yes, yeah.
so
So,
for those
but
who
we
don't know-
might have wrapped one up, and then like Taylor Swift on the bus, we had the little family van and on to the next city, and we stopped at Buc-ee's and had beef jerky. And one day we'll live stream. So the tour is going, to answer your question, it's going really, really well. And what we're finding is this message is really resonating because I too have a love-hate relationship with insurance. You know, in my background as a consultant, much like what you guys do, helping practices drive that top line revenue. And especially for those doctors that are participating with plans, it was supposed to make insurance administration easier. And, you know, from what I see and what I find and the head nods when we're giving live lectures, it's done just the opposite. It gets more and more complicated. So what we did, because who doesn't want a raise? Who doesn't want to be paid more for the same amount of hours and the same amount of work? And what we were finding, not only with the dental billing and maybe being shorthanded and not having individuals to make sure the claims are going out clean, and follow up, you know, to have the conversations ahead of time of what the patient's overall financial obligation is, and getting those copays and the whole back end, that whole start to finish revenue cycle, which is a term that I just learned a couple of years ago, but it's all about getting paid for what you do. And so trying to bring some simple terms and really identifying, now that we've brought together what is the most comprehensive solution in reimbursement and dentistry, which are these 3 C's. And this is when you can begin to tell that I'm a product of the Sesame Street generation. I think it came out when I was 1. And I would imagine that when I was a child, I never missed an episode. I don't know. I have some favorites, like when Bert was doing the little pigeon dance, you know, but so really simplifying 3 C's, and it really starts with, in that revenue cycle, the contracting piece, which is Unitas, the coding piece, which in the past we were always like, oh, coding, that's an administrative function. I worked at the front. I never worked in the back. I had no idea what was going on back there. I just saw what codes were entered. Maybe I could tell from an x-ray that it could have been something different, but really having the clinical team understand their role in the reimbursement process, and also how important it is to stay on top of that. So many great coding resources and how that directly impacts revenue. So that's the Dr. Jim and Practice Booster portion. And then collecting, which it seems like before we would put the whole dental billing piece at the beginning, when really it's a domino effect. It comes more at the end of that part of it. So those are the 3 C's of revenue cycle management. And once again, we've been able to identify, especially with shared clients, the financial impact, sometimes $150,000 a year per provider, per doctor, that is participating with insurance. And even for those that don't participate at all, there is still money being left on the table, and sometimes even more, because from the Dr. Jim side and the coding, because they don't have the restrictions of the plan. So I'm a fan. I love dentistry. Many dentists that I coached for years are my friends, and we all want our friends to win. And this is a great solution to get paid more for the work that we're already doing.
All right. So question for the 3 of you on the first, can we focus on the first C for just a moment?
Sure.
So first trivia question, this doesn't have to be an exact answer, but in your experience, how many providers have actually read the contract they signed?
Well, I think I'll grab this one if it's okay with Penny, since it's sort of what we handle for our clients. And I will tell you, Steve, almost zero. They don't even have the contract, and that
Correct.
really introduces the confusion of that credentialing process, which I hate to say seemed a little intentional. We're using some terminology that comes out of the medical and hospital industries, have applied it to dentistry to kind of sneak a very detailed, lengthy contract in on a doctor. Yeah, and give him 4 or 5 pages of credentialing application, and they really get focused on that, and they don't realize all the provisions that are hidden in these contracts.
And vetted through dozens and dozens and dozens of attorneys. So here is one, just as an example of that. Last week I was at the Chicago Midwinter, as all of you were as well. And one of the pieces that I just put in my session when I was just in passing, because it wasn't an insurance topic, we were just talking about scheduling and how you bill your patients and the whole deal. And I just in passing mentioned that if you're writing off the patient portion, if you're not collecting the patient portion from the patient and you're just writing it off, that is insurance fraud, unless you disclose it to the insurance company that you're giving them a discount. And it got just dead silent in that room. It was like, and eyes as big as silver dollars. And I had a lot of team members that came up to me and said, can you clarify that for me? Because this, that, and the other. And I said, yeah, common practice, but it doesn't mean it's a right. And I said, you need to go back and read your contract of what you agreed to, because if you're, in most cases, that contract says you have to collect the patient portion. That's part of your agreement. And if you don't, that's insurance fraud. Am I off base there?
You're 100%. Oh, go ahead.
Jim, you go ahead, and then I'll
No, go ahead.
follow up here.
And then I'll go last, which is rare. Go ahead.
Steve, what you often hear is about the doctors that are out of network that will say, well, I didn't sign a contract. And that's not true, because what's happened here is that you've given your patient documentation that they are submitting to their insurance company in order to get the portion, the out of network portion that they will get paid. And so you've provided documentation that you've certified as the provider that the total billing, the total cost of the service was X, when in reality you've told the patient that it was not going to be X, it was going to be whatever their insurance has paid out. Now, there's a lot of gray area here in the law, and I'm not accusing, just like I don't think you were, Steve, of accusing people in the room of knowingly committing insurance fraud, but there's just a lot of misunderstanding about submitting claims and just what the contracting process is. And so, providers do have to be very careful when they're, like you said, if they're going to allow patients to submit claims and that the doctors are going to wait on payment, or that they're going to provide documentation to the patient in order to submit for a claim, they've got to adhere to the law in their state, which in most cases is they do have to make a good faith effort to collect the balance.
So whether you're in network or out of network, it's the same. You have to know what you've agreed to. If you're accepting money there, whether it was a signed contract or whether it's implied because you submitted the information, there's some legality there.
Yeah.
I'll go after Jim. Jim, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, no, it is an eye opener, Stephen, and I've actually shared that same comment, and you see it, right? You see the sweat, you see the panic, right? It's like, well, and the key for fraud is intentional, right? So, what we want to be able to do is make sure that we're sharing the proper information. Now, the caveat is, and as soon as I follow up and share this next statement with you, we're all probably going to have the same reaction. It's entirely okay to provide a discount to your patient, and you stated it, but you also have to provide the discount to the insurance carrier. Right? So we're like, wait, stop, time out. Wait, why would I do that, right? But that's part of the contractual obligation. So what you're saying is 100% true. And unfortunately, it is an eye-opener for a lot of offices, but that's why it comes down to getting the proper guidance. We work too hard to become dental professionals and work in this environment. It's a very difficult environment. You're running many hospitals. A good day is when your patients show up. A great day is when your staff shows up and everybody's happy, right? So those are really difficult things to have happen. So we don't want to leave money on the table, and we don't want to increase our liability or risk.
So Jim, you've worked on the payer side. What triggers an audit?
Oh, okay. Let's talk about that.
Am I getting off track? Am I going
No,
down a
this
rabbit
is
hole
right on
here?
track. And in fact,
I was just asking the questions everybody wants to know.
one of my
We've never
favorite
audited.
topics. Yeah, and I feel bad. I want to put it to song with Penny, because I think then it comes across a little softer. But we could talk about this for hours. And truthfully, it's the red flags. What a lot of us don't realize as providers is that we are being audited. You know, and AI is here. It's been here. You know, so now we're hearing about it. But truthfully, AI and logarithms and all those things have already been in insurance carriers' portfolios and products, so they understand what you're submitting and how often it's being paid first pass. And you get ranked. I mean, we'll just be honest here. So if you're an A provider, you're going to get claims paid faster than if you're a D or an F provider, because that means the more often they look at your claim, the more often they're not paying the claim based on something. It could just be a narrative error. It could be an attachment error. It could be something that you forgot to do, or you could be using deleted codes. So one of the things that we do at Practice Boosters, we do an audit for you of your office. Would it shock you to know that on average, we're finding dental offices are using between 3 and 5 deleted codes? They're using over 22 custom codes. As a provider, as an insurance carrier, denied, denied, denied. That's the easiest way to get claims denied. And we're only appealing about 33% of claims that we can appeal. Who wins there? The insurance carriers, right? And we're letting our patients down because they're committed to come. I mean, just think about what it takes to get a patient into your office. You've got to attract them, and then you've got to retain them. And we all know what the cost of a new patient is to the office. Very difficult to get them through that door. Now we got to do everything for that patient to keep them. We have to provide quality care, but we also have to we also have to match what we're telling them the fees are going to be with what the fees actually are. When we say one thing at the beginning, they go through treatment, and then there's this back end. Oh, I'm sorry, now you owe $150 instead of $20. That creates distrust and discord. And truthfully, I like to say disease, right? Or disease, right? It's disease into your practice, or dis-ease between your patient and you. All those things cause friction, and then ultimately can hurt with retention with your patient. So fraud, there's so many red flags: overutilizing codes, underutilizing codes. So, you know, if you get a patient who calls and says, well, you know what, my provider told me that I need to pay this amount for this code, and they say, well, this isn't even in a CDT code, that triggers all kinds of problems. So a lot of things cause this trigger to become, cause the red flags to line up. If you get on focused review, it takes a long time to get off of focused review. So we could talk all day about that, but I know I kept Penny from singing here, so I'll just turn it over to her. She'll
Yeah.
bring this up.
So in case you're wondering where the singing references come from, we might have written our own version of a revenue cycle management rap to
I can't wait for this.
run DMCs. Oh, we're not doing it today.
This is how we get viewers, Penny. This is how more
well, we weren't prepared. We'll have to come back for that one. So this was at ADOM Live on the ADOM's Got Talent, which we were not in the talent part of it, but both Jim and Scott might have had mullets on. I was dressed like Run DMC. File those claims, bill this way instead of walk this way. Yeah. So we'll just let you imagine that, and imagine them with mullets and me with a trucker hat on. We have a really great picture. So
wonderful.
What I was going to say, and not to go too far down the rabbit hole, and I am going to go ahead and mention this. Fraud is not only specific to the insurance companies. This was something that I did not understand and had to seek some clarity from someone who's an expert in that area. When you send a billing document in the mail or over the wire and it says it's for $1,000, you're telling the federal government that you intend to collect $1,000. So it being in or out of network really has no impact on whether or not something is fraud. Now, being involved with the insurance companies would make you more susceptible to that happening, but it's really about the transparency when you send a bill electronically or in the mail. that what's on that bill, because I personally used to think, hey, the patients are paying this premium. They should be able to do whatever they want with their insurance. And unfortunately, don't shoot the messenger just because I think that it's that way. That's not really the reality of how it is. So always best. And I think this will resonate, Steve, with you and you guys and your message. As I shared in my program at Chicago Midwinter on getting paid, dentistry is expensive. It is. It's an investment. Like we need to like own it, and it's life-changing. It's an investment. And where patients have the most upset is not at what the fee is, not at what the cost is. It's about managing expectations. And so, I think a lot of what makes us feel like we need to do that, hey, why would we do it for insurance only? Well, what are we not saying that is being stated? It's not worth that full fee. I'm willing to accept only what your insurance pays. So there's all sorts of other messaging that I think we inadvertently do when we do those sorts of things. And on the last part of the C, right? I mean, that is also having an outsourced dental billing partner is awesome. Having a team that really understands and values and believes in the treatment and talking about what the full fee is and getting the patient on board and them taking care of their responsibility accurately on the front end. So we don't have that back end ickiness, losing patients, negative Google reviews,
et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk is what I
There you
usually
go.
say when
I love it.
when I
Turn
run
it-
on and on.
Turn it into a wrap. Turn it into a wrap.
Okay, I have a question about C number 2 that you alluded to, mentioned briefly. Why is it important for the provider, for a dentist, to be familiar with coding? Let's just let the front office take care of it. Why does a dentist need to be familiar with CDT codes?
Love this question. I feel like this was a perfect segue. Over here, you can see we've got some resources. Here is a QR code just for Crown Council members. If you click on that, if you take a photo of that, you'll get a special discount. Because if I were to ask you, how many CDT code changes do you think there have been over the last 4 years, which is what we do in our famous now, Dr. Give Yourself a Raise tour, we get all kinds of answers, but we never get the right one. There's been over 200 code changes since 2020. So what does that mean? That means if you're not coding correctly, or you're using outdated codes or deleted codes or custom codes or duplicate codes, which we find all the time, that's going to result in a claim delay and most likely a denial. And I said, of which only 33% get appealed, that money goes in the insurance company's pockets, not your pocket, and from your patient's pocket. So when you talk about coding, it's I never thought about coding. First of all, I didn't know about codes in dental school until I had to get credit to graduate. And they said, well, you have to collect the money from the insurance company. Boom, that's when it triggered. I didn't know they changed. And I didn't know they changed every year. So next week, I'll be at the ADA going to the code maintenance committee. There's 93 code submissions on the books for next week at the ADA, meaning we're going to review 93 of these next week. That is an incredibly robust code change year. So the best thing you can do is update your coding resources each year. And even if you bought a 2023 book, the ADA came out with mid-year revisions on many codes last year. So your 2023 book is already out of date. I like to say they expire at the end of the year because you're not capturing those new additions. What we do at Practice Boosters, we look at the code. We go to the code maintenance committee. I mean, if anybody wants to go, you can go. It's a great time. I'm a little tired now, but I think my tiredness I just got to stay awake, but it's a really great, I like it. I think there's a lot that goes on, but you get to understand why these changes are being submitted. Now, anybody can submit a change, including dentists and dental professionals. But the goal here is to make sure that you're utilizing these codes correctly. When we do revenue enhancements, which we'll do an audit of your office, Steve, what we find is, on average, patient and offices are currently at about 65% the UCR for their zip code. So what we do is we analyze and we say, okay, where are you in relation to your peers? Where are your fees? I don't want to be at 65%, right? What we're finding is that a lot of dentists work 12-hour days and they get paid for 10. I don't like that idea. I don't think I could hire somebody and say, I'm going to work you 12 hours, but you're only going to get paid 10. That doesn't happen. It only happens to dentists because we're the last ones to get paid. So what we do is we try and figure out which codes they're using and which codes they're using incorrectly so that they can get paid for the 12 hours that they're working. There's no reason to be working harder rather than smarter. The best part about this is you don't need to learn a new procedure. You don't need to see more patients. We're just going to help you capture the amount of money that you should be capturing based on your preferences. I remember I got a consultant once and they're like, oh, you got to do 5 crowns in the morning and 3 crowns in the afternoon. Well, that's great. I'd love to, but that's not what my patients want. What we're going to do is we're going to match your style. If you don't want to do endo, great. We'll help you figure out how to code for referring to an endodontist versus doing the pulpotomy in your office. They're 2 different scenarios. And you can make more money if you do it this way than if you do it this way. The best part is you're using the codes correctly and you're understanding what the insurance reimbursement is going to look like so that you can maximize your legitimate reimbursement. That's all we want to do. We want to help you clean up your processes now so that you can get paid for the full day you're working.
So when somebody says to you, most of the changes, when they add all those new codes, it really doesn't matter because we're not going to get paid for them anyway. Like some of the biggest changes this year were all around airway, and insurance companies aren't going to pay for all those. So why bother?
Love that
Your response to that is?
My response is if we don't submit for them, they will never get reimbursed. And you have to be updating your fees every year. Here's what happens on the insurance side. I see Dr. Anderson's office. I see that you haven't raised your fees in 4 years. I say, I'm not going to raise your fees, right? That's how it works. It's all a game. And I'm not averse to insurance. In fact, I like insurance. I've spent 10 years with them. And at this point, I understand how that side works. And I want to be here to advocate for the provider. If I were a dentist working now every day, all day, raise your fees every year. It's a must. You have to. If you don't, you'll never get fee increases from the insurance carriers. The second thing is submit for everything you do. Even if you don't think you're going to get reimbursed, the actuaries at these insurance companies are all in competition, right? So the insurance, all the insurance carrier does is administer the benefit the employer purchased. Well, the employer doesn't know if they should be purchasing sleep apnea coverage. They can. Steve, have you ever heard, hey, wait a minute, my maximum is $1,500 a year, and that's never changed since 1970. And back then, crowns were $700 or $500, so I can get 3 crowns a year. How come you bad insurance companies don't raise your? We can, we would, we do. But the employer doesn't purchase that. The employer purchases the $1,500 maximum. You can get 3, 4, 5, you can get whatever you want. But that's not what they're purchasing. And the insurance companies are not the bad people. They're just administering the benefit the employer purchased. So we have to change that dynamic. And the way to do that, raise your fees each year, submit for what you do. Even if the code's not going to get reimbursed, you're at least telling them that now this is being utilized more. Maybe we should cover it.
And I think you bring up a good point too, is some patient education to say, hey, you might want to suggest to your employer that you have a higher benefit. Did you know that your same insurance has higher benefits of $3,000, $4,000, $5,000? You might want to talk to your HR person, because in most cases, I would say probably 80% of the employers provide dental insurance at the lowest level just so they can say they provide it.
Yep. Yeah, I made a good point. That's 100% on target. And it's a difficult conversation to have. And again, what we have to remember as providers is the insurance companies do not dictate treatment based on coverage, right? That's the myth that we all think, well, if the insurance company doesn't cover it, then I probably don't need it. Well, that's not true, right? Again, it comes back to that employer and carrier relationship, payer relationship. And truthfully, nothing should come between the provider and the patient relationship. And that's what we always strive to achieve.
Okay, so whichever the 3 of you wants to respond to this one, this is a hot topic that we deal with all the time, is practices that will code based on how the insurance company reimburses. So for example, and this is one of my Charles Blair favorite things that he taught me was, well, the insurance company will only pay for 249.10s a year. So we alternate 49.10 with 11.10 because that's what they're going to pay us anyway. So Charles taught me a different way. You want to give us the reminder of this is when our mantra is code what you do and do what you code, right? In other words, you're going to code for exactly what you do. But in that particular case, you want to give us a quick refresher, because that's one of the most common coding mistakes we see, is trying to game it and say, well, this is what they're going to pay, so we're going to code it this way. But that's not really what you're doing.
If I had a spotlight right now, I would shine it on Jim. Take it away, Jim.
Well, I don't know. I feel bad. I would love to keep talking, and I certainly will. But answer your question is, there's so many nuances in the coding sequence. Here's another stat for you. Over 850 CDT codes. Most offices only use between 80 and 120. So there's this big
81.
gap of coverage. What we
Right.
do in our revenue enhancement and UCR analysis is we're looking at what your utilization rates are for these codes. And we're seeing where you're underutilizing codes. What that means is you could be leaving a lot of money on the table. And what we're finding on average, just from one code that we've done, the 4346, officers are leaving about $20,000 a year on the table. So when you come up with the 4910s and the 1110, it could be different for each office, and it might not be that combination. It might be perio. I can't tell you how many times I see custom codes for perio evaluation. Did one yesterday, 480 that year. They billed out $0. Then no D0180s. So I'm thinking to myself, where are they just capturing this for legal reasons? But if they are,
Yeah.
then they're also not coding correctly, and that's okay. But we want to help you make sure that you're not leaving money on the table and also covering yourself legally, because they go hand in hand. So what Dr. Blair said holds true. Code for what you do and do for what you coded, right? And that's the treatment plan. So in your office, it might be a 4910 1110 alternation. It might be a 4910 across the board. It might be 3 months instead of 4. And those nuances are pulled out. We can pull a lot of that out from your procedure counts and your UCR fees. But until we have that consultation with you, we won't really know. What's nice about the Practice Booster Code Advisor is you can look up all these codes online, type the code in, it gives you the list of all the things that you need to be concerned about. Also, it comes with free coding support. For $297 a year, discount for our special friends here, you can ask questions as many as you want, and we're going to answer them within 48 hours. So huge opportunity to have those kinds of questions answered in a timely fashion.
So, Jim, hats off to you for a dentist. You are one of the best salespeople I have ever met.
Well, I built this shelf up here, and I really want to get it to work. And what you said about the Dr. Give Yourself a Raise tour, I thought we'd have groupies. We don't. But what we
Not yet. It's because we needed Crown Council.
Well, we did. We become Bucky groupies. So we're going there often. I mean, that's part of every stop. So we kind of inverted that a little bit, but I like your thinking, and I think we can work it out together.
Okay. Last C, as we bring this in for a landing. We've talked about contracting. We've talked about coding, and I have monopolized all the questions because I got about 3 hours more questions for you guys. Bring us in for a landing on the collection piece in terms of the most overlooked aspects of collecting. Get the money.
Get the money, which, if we have enough time, it all came back to me. I do remember a little bit of the rap. So, maybe as an outro, I'll do that if we have time. And now Jim and Scott are very afraid. So, most overlooked aspect, I would say, really, I'm going to tie it back into culture, is believing that the services that we offer are worth it, and having in those treatment discussions, the patient can't buy a feeling that we don't have, right? So we believe in what we do. We believe in the fee. We're confident in it. When it comes to the insurance piece, being sure that the information that we have on file for the patient is correct as far as their benefit plan. And that goes beyond, we all know what happens. Hey, Steve, has anything changed with your insurance? You're like, nope, everything's the same. When in reality, unless you have a kiosk, we may not know what it is that we're talking about, right? So we make these assumptions, claims get filed to the wrong payer, and can begin to set everything askew, not to mention if there is an insurance plan involved when we present the treatment, the patient is taking that, as we say in the South, as the gospel truth, as far as what their insurance is going to pay, right?
Never hear the word estimated.
Yes. Yeah. They never hear the word estimated. And then So being sure, and when I ask offices, what is the primary reason why we're not verifying eligibility and benefits on our patients at least twice a year, if not right before every visit? And they say we don't have enough time, right? So busy is the enemy of great. Busy is the enemy of effective. And that's where find an outsourced solution if we don't have time in the office, because how much money are we missing out on? How many patients are we losing? Bird Eye, which is one of the top review platforms, says the number one reason that patients will leave a negative review has to do with the expense. Once again, I don't think it's because they think it's expensive. I think it's because they think it was different than what they were told. Right? They have that unmet expectation, right? Balancing relationships and expectation. And then one of the others is being very clear about what the estimated portion is, the patient would pay with the insurance. I'm a huge fan of third-party patient-friendly financing, right? Let's just make it easy on the patient. Most patients they don't budget for dentistry, right? So we need to speak to them in terms, we all, whether we admit it or not, we know we should pay cash for everything, yet everything's on a payment plan, right? Our house, for a lot of us, our cars. So we're not finding a way to work that into the patient's budget. And I'm going to quote something that Dr. Jim shared with me, and I'm going to use one of my lifelines with you, Jim, in case I mess it up a little bit. But I believe it was the 2022 stat from the National Association of Dental Plans showed that I believe it was less than 4% of patients with insurance actually maxed out their insurance.
Wow.
Is that right, Jim?
It's incredible, right? NADP stat, right? So we always hear about this. Oh, you only have $1,500 maximum. Well, only less than 4% are actually maximizing that benefit. Yeah,
right.
You're 100% right.
So if you get your calculator out, and if you have 2,000, if you have 2,000 active patients in your practice, and let's say all of them had insurance, which that not necessarily true, but let's say they all did. If they all utilize their $1,500 maximum every year, that's a $3 million practice.
Yeah.
And so often, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't, in some cases, be incredibly frustrated with the state of dental insurance. Yet we're often focused so much on what we can't do and what's not working, that there's this whole world of patients that we have that for whatever reason are not taking advantage of benefits that most of them are paying for, right? So I would say get out of the box, and look around. You have people walking into your practice every single day with dental benefits that have unrestored teeth. And the other is Lifetime of Care. CareCredit did this amazing Lifetime of Care study. I'm not sure if you've seen it. I think you could probably Google dental Lifetime of Care, where they surveyed and looked, and it was like $70,000 to $90,000 is what the average expense is that a patient spends on dentistry, right? Mm-hmm. So if we do begin to look at, I love full mouth rehabilitations. Everybody doesn't do that all at once. Some people are doing it from the ages of 2 to 92. So the changing the beliefs, but for larger treatment, if it's over a certain amount, getting a signed financial agreement, not saying that we're lending money, but have them sign, and then even initial where it says, hey, this is an estimate. Patients have amnesia when we have conversations. They don't remember what they signed. Sometimes they forget and are like, wait, this was $10,000. You told me it was 1,000. Like they forget a zero, and then they're upset for no reason. So, and then I think just kind of bringing it home, and it comes back down to the expertise piece. The average, there's not many places, we're on a mission to change that, where you can really learn and be trained, not just have a book, but be trained to be an expert dental biller and an expert dental coder. So we have individuals that are looking to see if the claims are going out clean, or maybe they're not. Maybe they're just pressing the button every day. And, like what was it used to say, like pray and spray, like we're filing and praying, that they're all clean, or making sure they have the right documentation. And so if we don't have the insurance verified appropriately, and we haven't had the clear and specific conversation with the patient, and we're not making sure that the patients, understand their portion and that the claims are going out the door with everything they need, now that accounts receivable starts backing up. And, it's which begins do I want to pay more attention to the patient right in front of me in that relationship? Or do I have to have more and more people on my team with their head down trying to go back and collect the money that we should have gotten? So making sure the claims are going out clean and having the time and the tenacity. As I used to tell my dental teams, my definition of tenacity is a puppy dog on a pant leg.
Amen.
Like if a puppy has ever gotten a hold, Dr. Jim is raising a seeing eye puppy. I'm not sure how old Gavel is now, probably 14 weeks. They get a hold of the bottom of your pant leg and they will not let go. Right.
Right.
So only when claims have been denied, and this was a recent survey from our eAssisters, 77% of the time it did not get paid until the second or third appeal.
Right.
Well, most offices are like, look, I appealed it once. I'm probably, I'm going to move on to something else. And then, so it's having the time and expertise to follow up with the insurance companies. And if there is a remaining balance with the patients, following up with the patients. So, but it's end to end, right? From how are we contracted with the plans all the way over to, knowing the entire, and I'm not only saying the dentist, I say, make it a game. Get those updated coding resources. Jim, you need to make a game at Practice Booster and sell it. Pull a code out of the hat, right?
Yeah,
Spin the wheel, who got it right, and then there are prizes. I don't know, from the Dollar Tree or their Crown Council squishy stress teeth.
All right, so just like in football, this is your 2-minute warning. We got 2 minutes to wrap up. All three of you, one of you, give us a quick rundown of resources that are available from eAssist, Practice Booster. Quick 2-minute wrap up.
I'll go first. So eAssist, outsourced dental billing, outsourced insurance verification, outsourced patient billing. We are your partner. We are your virtual back office, and many of our services are a la carte. And how you know you need us is by looking at your accounts receivable. It should be no more than one time your average monthly production, and also looking at that insurance over 90 aging should be at 0 or near 0. And then I don't know if we want to go around the horn, or guys, if you want me to tell them all about everybody's.
You got 1 minute left. Somebody better jump in.
Okay.
Well, maybe I'll just jump in here real quick, Steve, to just say, I think what the amazing thing is this last year has seen, under the eAssist umbrella, all these 3 core competencies come together. These used to be all kind of separate products, separate resources. And it's just been amazing for and I'll just, like Jim has shared a lot today. It's been amazing for Unitas at the front end that's negotiating these contracts. And our services include, PPO management and negotiation of your contracts, of your participation contracts, as well as all the credentialing and documentation side that goes along with that. But we've now integrated with Jim's team, with the Charles Blair coding team, and it has had an astounding impact on the results that we're able to get for our clients. Just think of what we're talking about when you're saying, hey, now the person that's negotiating the contracts and the rates that you're paying for each of the codes, you now have the expertise of, the Charles Blair team and Jim's, experience from being an adjudicator on the other side to say, you don't have to do the little workarounds like you were talking about. You can do what Charles was expressing, code, what you do, and feel very confident in that, and know that you've had those, your contracts will reflect what you're doing, and that you're going to be paid the maximum dollars available. And so for our first step, and now it's fine, I'm not going to, Jim's done an amazing job of selling today, but so many of our customers and clients come in and they have no idea about the coding side. We start to go to them and say, hey, we need to understand how you're practicing. If we're going to represent you and we're going to get you the highest reimbursement rates available, we have to understand how you're coding, how you're treating, what's your method of treatment. And so at the bare minimum, for a practice to not have an up-to-date coding resource, one of the Coding with Confidence books, and make sure that they're up to date. Jim's talked about all of the, I don't know how we could start to do what we're going to do for our clients. So now to be an integrated team is amazing. I mean, the amount of service and benefit that we can provide really is astounding.
Excellent. Hey, thanks for being with us today. Thanks for all of your wisdom and resources, and for being a Crown Council resource partner. We really value your input and your industry knowledge in, like we said, this area that everybody loves to hate. And when you dig into it and know how to do it, then it's just that much easier. So thanks for all of your wisdom and for sharing with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everybody.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Steve, thank you,
We're
Stuart.
here to help.
Hey, we'll post our we'll post this recorded video on crowncouncil.com, and I'll gather all the resources from Penny, and it'll go along with the recording, so you'll be able to access everything we talked about today and the resources that they're going to share. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
With us.
Bye-bye.
Take care. See
Bye
you soon.
bye. We're done.
Everything you wanted to know about insurance and more.
It was more. It was more.
I'll say
Scary.
the one big takeaway from that: 4% of patients maximize their benefits.
That's a sellable statistic.
That is amazing. Huge opportunity.
Very good.
Steve, have
Hey-
you ever heard of Dev Dent?
Yes.
Do you have an opinion or a relationship?
Hey, well, maybe they're up for another interview.
Yeah, we'll save them for another live stream here, Gregory.
All right. Hey, great to be with everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. And Greg, good luck on the Dominican humanitarian expedition. And for all those that are going to the Dominican Republic, we're with you all the way.
Very good. Hey, Steve,
Thank you.
I know that next week we're meeting with the best doctor to work for awarded at the annual event.
Yes.
But then the following week, we're going to be lucky. It's a lucky week. Can you talk about what we're going to do on March 14th?
March 14th, as we ramp up to St. Patrick's Day week, we're going to do a special live cast webinar on the 13 ways to increase your luck in case acceptance. So we pulled out some of the just bottom line, just some of the things every practice should be doing to increase your case acceptance success. So get lucky and join us on March 14th for our webinar live cast. It's going to be packed with actionable, great stuff to do immediately.
Very cool. Can't wait.
Thanks, everybody.
Everybody.
Thanks. Okay, bye-bye.